Hello and welcome to Colin's Wonder. This is another entry into Pen Wars. So let's get started here. We have the Jinhao X450. So I'll give you some close-up shots here. This is the blue, black, and gold. And then we can look at just the black and gold. I have 3 of these. All right, so let's see here. This pen is a very cheap pen. It's less than $10. Might be a good introduction pen for those that are drawn to this style of pen. It's a cartridge converter with a pull cap. So you have to unscrew it, fill the ink through the standard cartridge converter. All of mine came with converters. Let's see. Let's look at the nibs. So focus, there we go. I have a 2-tone gold and silver nibs. I don't think there's any actual premium metals on here, considering the cost. I'll show some macro images of a nib here. And, it's not a bad looking nib, especially considering the cost. Overall, I do think this pen feels, maybe higher quality than it actually is, just based on its weight. It feels nice. I've had pleasant writing experiences with it when it does write. I tend to throw a lot of different inks at these pens, so this is kind of where I put my weird shimmer inks and sheening inks that I don't want to put in a more expensive pen. That said, I have had some issues with this with all sorts of inks. It doesn't have to be a shimmer or a sheening ink. I just don't think the capping mechanism seals it well enough that if I leave one of these pens sitting around for too long, it dries out, and I have hard start issues where sometimes I have to actually go and get some water, kind of just let the water soak up through the nib to get it to dry out the ink again. Or another thing I've actually started doing, if I don't want to do that, I'll unscrew this and I'll just slightly twist the feed or the cartridge converter to push the plunger down, and it'll kind of push out some ink, and then I know it's good to go. That's another hack, I guess. It's sad that you have to do that, but I mean, it is a cheap pen. Another thing I don't like is just, I think the engraving looks really bad on the name. I kind of wish it was like a higher resolution. Let's see if I can really get a good focus on that. I just don't think it looks very nice. The clip here also looks kind of cheap, but it feels nice. It does have this like little 3 grip thing, which, when you're first starting out with fountain pens, maybe that's advantageous. I find after a while, I start to get little indents here if I write for this long time, like I used to get with mechanical pencils. So it's not like the best, but I'll get to that later in the pen war section. Some issues I've had with this, besides the hard starting, is there seems to be some intermittent issues with ink, depending on how flowy it is. Maybe seeping through the section between this the grip and the nib, where the brass is. I've actually had some ink seep through there and get all over my thumb or my index finger, or middle finger, I should say. Well, actually, all 3 fingers. So yeah, there's that. And it's not all the inks. It's not all the time. It's just intermittently happened where I'm like, what happened? And I've made a conscious effort not to, let this get too close to my fingers. So I'm maybe touching the feed or something. It took me a while to figure out what was going on. And that actually happened to notice when I put a bulb syringe on here to clean it out, and I was pumping water through the feed, and I noticed some ink bubbles coming out. So that's why I was like, huh, maybe that's what's happening. All right, so would I recommend this pen? I think so. If someone's just getting started, if you already have a collection of pens, I think you might be disappointed. But if fountain pens is, your first fountain pen and you aren't willing to spend $30 and you want something less than 10, I guess I could recommend it. If I would also maybe push you to get something a little more expensive, just so you have a better experience. That said, it's kind of what I typically use these pens for, are a testing ground for inks that I just want to see, if it'll cause any issues with the pen in its feed. I don't want to necessarily clean out some of my more expensive pens. I don't know what it is. I guess I'm touchy that way, but that's kind of what I use this pen for. And let's see, I don't think this one's actually inked, so I can't do a writing sample with this. Let's see, let me go. But yeah, let's start with the writing sample, and then I'll get into the Penmore section. It's Golden Lapis by Pelican. So let's see. Oh, see, there's kind of a hard start. I haven't written with this pen for a while. There we go. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I was writing with this pen a little bit earlier today, so it wasn't even that long. But this is a shimmer ink, so let's see if I can get it to focus on the paper. Yeah, I don't know why it's not focusing. But so this ink is by Pelican. And it, I mean, this isn't really an ink video, but it is, I'm not generally a fan of shimmer inks, to be honest. I don't have very many. However, we do have, when I say we, my wife is included in this, and she tends to use them more. But this is one I kind of got for me because I like the blue and gold. And as you can see, the gold shimmer there. So yeah, these pens are solid writers. I don't really have, any issues with it when they're writing. As I said, they tend to skip and hard start on me significantly, but they don't feel scratchy as much. I haven't had one. I will say that the nib sizes, I think this is a fine, but it writes kind of like a medium. So if you want a medium or a more thicker line, you can probably get a fine and be happy with it. I don't know what a medium is. I don't have one. And I don't have an extra fine. So unfortunately, all mine are in fines. This is kind of the thickness I like to write in. So I'm okay with that. All right, so let's get over to Ink Wars. Okay, so pen, focus, yep. Jinhao X, I can't write today, 450. And as I said, this nib is a fine. Oh, I guess, does it post? It does post. I don't really post my pens, just so you know. So I kind of forget to talk about it. I prefer not to when I write. I just don't like posting pens, but some people prefer that. So it does post. It's not a solid poster. I mean, it's not like a post test. It does hold there, but it's not like gets locked on there. Okay, on to Penmores. So the appearance. Overall, I do like the appearance, the shape, the cigar shape. It's very classic. I think it's inspired by, some Mont Blancs or, some other pens out there. There's a lot of pens that kind of have this shape to them, like Sailor, Mont Blancs. It's just kind of a classic shape, and I think it's a tried and true, tested. It just stands the test of time. So I'm actually going to give it, an 8. The nib, I actually think the nib, especially considering your price, is pretty good. I like the two-tone. There's some ornateness there. I kind of wish there was maybe the nib size in the middle or something. So it's not too over the top. So I would probably give this a 7 or an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8, being generous here, because I know, and I'm kind of being a little generous to this pen, maybe undeservingly so, but I do like it. But the clip I hate. I don't like how the clip looks. I don't like this shape. I don't like how it's like stamped metal, just kind of bent there. I'm just not a big fan of how this clip looks. Yeah, so the clip I'm going to be very hard on and give it a 5. And I mean, this is a classic shape, so I can't really give them any originality points here. I mean, it could be inspired by some pens out there and maybe even clones of them, but it is a classic shape. There's lots of pens that have this kind of form factor, so no originality points. So the build, it feels, I guess let me add up all the points. So that's 21, right? 30. So that's going to go to 14. This time I did kind of pre-score these pen wars before I did the video, just so I don't have to do math. It's making it easier. So spoiler, I did kind of go through this already in my mind, so it's not kind of just on the fly as I go, like I did in my previous videos. So it's kind of pre-calculated numbers that help the math be easier for me. Anyways, onto the build. The materials, while this does feel like a nicer pen than it probably is for the money, I like the weight. I actually really like the weight, but I can't really, I'm sure the materials are cheap. It's going to be cheap metal. I don't know how long it'll last, but it is cheap. Yeah. So I'm going to give it, it does feel nicer than it is, and I'm surprised I'm going to give it a 7, but I rated it a 7. Maybe I should downgrade that a little bit. I don't know. Because it doesn't have any premium materials, but it does have that feel to it. So it feels like a solid pen. It's not plasticky at all. The precision in which it's made, you can feel bumps everywhere. I'm honestly amazed I gave it these high of a scores. I'm kind of, I think I'm going to adjust this. So I'm sorry. I'm going to downgrade this to a 6. So I might have to do some math. And the precision, I'm also going to give a 6. Just because you can feel, you can feel the imprecise nature of it. I don't have a microscope to look at it or anything, and I'm not going that far, but seeping issues here also might speak to that. So 6 on precision. So I had read these both at 7s before, but I'm doing 6 now. So the nib alignment, I don't think I've had very many issues, maybe a little bit. So I'm going to go 9. Imperfections. Again, honestly, imperfection and precision are kind of like similar things. So I might rethink that a little bit and maybe eliminate that category. I don't know, because I kind of judge them in the same way. These are like manufacturing and precision or, imperfections. But maybe they don't have to necessarily do with precision. But I'm going to rate this one a 7. So that's what I had before. Spare parts are plentiful. With the pen being as cheap as it is, you can buy a whole new pen and have it all be spare parts. You can buy replacement nibs. You can actually swap to a different nib. So I'm going to give this a 5 on spare parts to kind of make up for some of its points. Let's see here. So design. The fill mechanism is a cartridge converter, and this kind of just standardized. If it has a cartridge converter, it starts and it can't get higher than a 7, and that's what it has. Unless it's the ones I might hold against it are, just as an example of a cartridge converter that will get less points is like a Lamy one. Well, actually, I don't know, because there's something about the Lamy one that I kind of like, but it's proprietary. It's annoying that it's not a standard converter that you can get everywhere. Again, that's sorry. Sidetracked the video a little bit, but let's move on to the clip. Now the clip, this one's based on how it appears. This one's based on how it functions. This is actually a nice tension for me. I'm pretty happy with the tension of this clip. It's not too tight. I hate it when clips are super tight that they can't really open. I think the tension is pretty spot on. So I'm going to give this one, I gave it a 10 before, and I think I was just feeling sorry for this pen. So I'll give it a 10 again. And that's probably because of the next one, the flaws. I've had a lot of issues with this pen. I don't think it seals in the ink well enough, so it dries out. I've had more issues with this pen than any other, where I am constantly getting my fingers inky wet as it seeps through here. And yeah, I just think there's a lot of flaws with this pen, but it is a cheap pen. But I kind of have to just hold it against it still. So 4, and then a 0 on features. So let me see here. Oh, I need to add these up. So this is a 21 out of 30. So that's the same as here. So that's 14 points. Let's see, what are we here? It's 33. Right, so, oh man, I'm gonna cheat here. Let me pull out my calculator. That's 16 and a half. Oh, I guess that was such easy math. Last time I did it so good, but then I started to mess up, so that's why I pre-calculated it all out. So next, let's get to usage. I'm going to give it a 10 on skipping because I didn't really have many skipping issues per se. All my nibs seem to be, not having that issue. It was more of hard starting. So I'm going to give it a 0 because this is the pen that I have the most hard start issues with. The ink flow, I'll give it a 10. These pens tend to flow very juicy. That was one of the first things I did like about this pen over some of the others. Just I like it when the ink flows. I love the weight. This is like at my ideal weight. There's no cleaning issues. Cleaning is another category. I don't know a good example of a pen that I'm going to hold cleaning against it. I haven't rarely ran into one unless it's like a real pain in the butt to clean. And with writing, I do enjoy writing with this pen. The only thing is that mechanical pencil thing that I get after a while. It's not as bad, but and I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about when I say that, but it just reminds me of being in high school writing with my mechanical pencil and getting little indentations on my finger. I'm going to give it a 9. So overall that's 49 out of 60. And that yields 16.3 points. So the price, it's cheap, less than $10. It comes with a cartridge converter. So it gets a really high score here. I'm going to give it a 9. I do think it's worth its money in price. The brand recognition, Jinhao is kind of known, out there. It is unfortunately known for cheaper knockoff kind of pens. Maybe as they improve their quality, they can improve that brand. I don't know, but I can't really give it high points here. I don't think, but at least it is recognizable. So I'll give it a 4. So if we add all these up, that is going to be 73.8. So that is our score for the Jinhao X450. Would I buy this pen again? Let's see. Let me get the text out of the way. I would, with caveat asterisks, meaning only to be my cheap pen that I throw weird inks at. Do I find myself reaching for this pen often? No, not at all. So there are a lot of pens that I prefer, actually most pens I prefer over this one, including some other Jinhaos. But this is just my pen that I throw weird stuff at. So I guess that's about it for this review and Pen Wars video. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I'm always looking to improve. If you have any pens you're interested in me putting into Pen Wars or anything you would like me to look at, please let me know and I will try to see what I can do. Thank you so much. Hey, I'm back again. So I just wanted to also mention and more show a close-up view. I smudged the score after I put it away, but there's just a close-up view of the scorecard. But more importantly, someone did ask for me to measure the line thickness of these pens. So I'm going to do that. This is kind of hard because line thickness of where and by what measure. So I'm going to say that's at a 0.5 for this fine nib on the Jinhao. I actually think it's supposed to be a 0.5, which is, that's fairly accurate. So I think Jinhao fine is 0.5. I'll have to look it up. I'll post an annotation in the video if I'm wrong. But I think it is a 0.5, which is usually medium in everything else. But yeah, thanks again.